I'm Margaret in Windsor, and I'm just making this real quick this morning video, and for a reason as usual. Uh, I was kidnapped in 1941, and brought to Moulton, Alabama, and given the name of a twin, Peggy Ann Dempsey. I married a Childers. I still have to use that name. The reason I'm putting this up is I've put up on YouTube and Facebook what's been done to me because of who I am. It's no doubt in anybody's mind who my father is, Edward VIII, that married Claudia O'Keeffe. And my mom was Queen of England. My father was married to her when my grandfather, George V, died, and he became king January of 1936. He was forced to abdicate in December 36, and history tells you to marry Wallace Warfield Simpson. Let me remind you, my father was married to my mom then and remained married until till their death, and that was after October the 20th of 86, and I know that for sure. So they were both still married and trying to get me back. Only they ended up taking my dad's ID, and in essence, my mother's too. I have to say, my mother's the sister Georgia O'Keeffe, the artist, to get someone to know. So I usually put up documents and photos. I just wanted to document this, though. I've put up over the years, and a friend of mine gave me the first video so I could upload it because I can't get an attorney, and law enforcement is involved in it. But people are the ones that are actually doing it. I wrote about mind control, the government's use of mind control, and Larry Flint was one of those that was shot by a program shooter and went into a pattern that you can prove them. Because mind control, like I say, is invisible, but these were deliberately done in patterns and can be proven, most of them. So Larry Flint did an endorsement in Hustler magazine and supported me in a couple of campaigns. I was out at his home twice in October of 83, and I've put the endorsement up. He says, I know who's responsible for a shooting in Lawrenceville, Georgia, etc. So what's happened the last years, I ended up in Roanoke, lived on the Appalachian Trail. I mean, just shut down. Couldn't get food, clothing, anything, a place to live, so I resorted to the Appalachian Trail and living in the forest, and that's where the forestry would come and run me, and it was a hell of a life. Seriously. So demeaning and horrible that it was a place to put the tent. So obviously I'm leaving out most of it, but I mean, you can't tell it. I'm allergic to chemicals, and I have an autoimmune disorder. And if anybody thinks that's funny, believe me, it's not. I should have been able to live a normal life, but when you're deliberately kept homeless and deliberately made a pauper and force-fed toxic fumes, and that's exactly what's happened. People will flip it off even though they know it's true. They don't want to hear it. I've been told that too many times. I don't care, woman. Get away from me. They know who I am. Victoria II, heir to the British Crown. They know about my kidnapping, etc. around here, and in Huntsville, Alabama, Atlanta, all over now. The media won't touch it because it would tell the truth and ruin the reputations of a whole bunch of people over the years. Uh, I'm going to mention Jody Mountbatten, who's related to me. They're cousins just like they are to Elizabeth. Elizabeth's sitting in my homes, my money, having weddings and celebrated. Everybody loves her. Magazines write them up. Photos won't stay away from them. Photographers. And I have continued to tell about the mind control murders because Virginia Tech next door to me, the person was programmed. You can take a plane down like the KAL and have the pilot veer into Russian airspace, or veer into the ocean, fly into the ocean or a mountainside. It can be used in any means to create the person to look as though they committed suicide. So I want to get to this. They've used my illness. I have an autoimmune disorder, and when I am force-fed toxic fumes, which is what has happened to me. I get really sick, and my immune system is triggered to attack itself, and it causes mass inflammation and damage to body organs, your heart, your lungs, etc. And I took photos. You can't take photos really. You can of black mole, which I've done where I've lived. I've had to live mostly in motels, and when I lived in like Richfield for a short time, and I lived in a black minister owned all these, but they're federally funded, so that's a way they can be controlled. It shouldn't be. I lived in Bedford at Joseph's Dream, and you should see what they did to me there. And I lived in Edinburgh here in Roanoke. And by the way, her son's still alive, and she still has her job. To hell with me and my sons, wherever they are, if they're alive. So the only thing I'm guilty of is telling the truth. I would want to know if somebody programmed my child, and if there's anything I could do about it. And if this was ever made public, you have to tell it. The media won't touch it. The same people that control the media are the ones that kidnapped me. The Rockefellers, Rothschilds, the Kennedys. Joe Kennedy was made ambassador by President Roosevelt. My own family, the Windsors. George VI, the illegal, and Elizabeth, who's sitting there now, are war criminals. They know exactly what's happened to me, and that my dad was married to my mom, and that the whole thing was a sham about marrying Wallace Simpson. It was to get George VI, Elizabeth's father, in so she could be queen, or she's illegal, but she's sitting there, and go along with the Illuminati, because she represents the Illuminati. I have read posts. I don't know how they were fed to me, but I got posts that were legit, and it was the Illuminati posting back, etc., etc., and you should have read it. I put some of it up while I had it. Anyway, back to the illness. I can't take pictures of that fumes, and people can just dismiss it. Since law enforcement's involved, they get things on the maintenance or the owners of the places or whatever they're doing to me. Okay, that's illegal, and they should be prosecuted. No one had the right to do any of this. The law enforcement would get things on the children, or on. There's also codes like entailed in operating if I'm having to live in motels, and that's been a big part of it. But I lived at the other places which were federally funded, low income, and I've tried to put up there what happened there. They should be locked up. If you did a background check on me, you would not see the truth. I'm going to focus on one named Scott Hill that I literally was taken over there, and it was like some kind of promotion, you know. What a joke, really. Got over there, and they put me in a room that had black mold, and none of the air conditioning units had ever been changed. It was a huge place, and could have been rather nice, and that's the point here. They used me. I came in there, and they had the air conditioning vent right over my face where I slept, and I couldn't move it. And it was small quarters. I have done everything to have a place to live, and suffered through all kinds of crap with my lungs and kidneys and everything. So finally, after 2 or 3 times, I left and went back trying to stay. And I'm not going to go into all of it now. It's too much what they can get people to do to save their jobs. And they get away with it because I can't get an attorney. One of the things there was that they just had me sign a month's lease, which is not, and then they stole it out of my room. But when I came back over here, had to come back over here, I left there, broke the lease. They sent the lease I signed. But what good is it to me now? I left there, them saying that I broke the lease and all that. I wanted to add this, because this is ongoing, what they do to me. While I was there for 3 months or 4, I can't remember, I paid everything on time. I had money for a change, not much, but I paid everything on time. And the electric, there was a black girl from Roanoke who had gone over there. They'd taken her over there, paid her fees for electricity, furniture, put furniture in it, and her deposits. Nobody's done a thing for me, but hey, I'm only the monarch that's been kidnapped. All the money that's poured in here and the torture, all they had to do was at least give me a halfway decent place to live, and instead of filling it with toxic fumes and making me live in rags and walk on the side of the road and beg and plead. And if I died tomorrow, I'd be a pauper in a pauper's grave or burned and incinerated. I wanted to mention this, and this is what people get squeamish about. Oh, geez, and they back off. I couldn't take photos, I could tell, and I have papers from these people that anybody, if I could get an attorney or anybody on the media that sees it, knows I'm telling the truth, what people have done. They even backed it up with letters to me and everything, the crimes. It's illegal, keeping me from my home, etc. While I was at Scott Hill, and by the way, that's one of my son's names, murders have been done using my son's names in Lawrence County, where I was taken, like Larry, Flint, Lawrence, or Montgomery, Alabama's where the twins' birth certificates that I have to use. I was told to get them, and would have to have got them anyway to use Peggy Dempsey's. So names I have to use. State of Alabama at Montgomery deliberately marked through the dates of birth, because the date of birth given me when I was placed over here was totally different. So it was almost like, hey, nobody's going to touch it. It's illegal to mark through and insert another date up on top. It's like nobody's going to touch it. But that was Montgomery, Alabama. Okay, just for an instance, Montgomery County is next door, where Virginia Tech murders happened. The young man from Korea, student, shot the 32, and he shot himself because he was programmed. He's a victim. People do not want to hear it. They hate me. Instead of saying, hey lady, I appreciate it, they hate my guts. They don't want me near them. They treat me like I committed the crimes. I wasn't in California. I wasn't in other countries where murders were done like this. I didn't do anything other than I was a messenger, and also the monarch that came in here, and money you can't believe poured in here is why you eat and have homes, send your kids to private schools or schools, and I live in rags. And you don't care that Elizabeth sits over there and gave away Great Britain, or what happened to my father. So crime pays, believe me. Anyway, over at Scott Hill, the black girl deliberately somehow got my mail, and I paid my electric bill there on time. And let me just cut it short. It was messed up, and it was applied to her account. When I got it straightened out, they sent me back my deposits. Well, not the deposit, but they sent me back the checks that I'd overpaid. And I have them here. I've even put them up. But do you think that matters? You have to get an attorney. So they've ruined my credit. They've done everything in the book to me, made it impossible to live. So I don't know if this is making sense or anybody cares. But I wanted to say this. When I came here, I'm talking about you can't take pictures of fumes that, like they come in and soak your bed when you walk out the door simply to go to the doctor or to get a bite to eat or just take a walk. They would come in. It doesn't matter. I mean, they have keys or they pass them around and do whatever they want to me. So the place I'm living now, when I came here, I had gotten scabies. Believe me, that's a horror story in itself. I lived where I've put this up about their connections to Intelligence Committee, etc., congressmen, former governors here, and I've paid a price for that. You don't tell the truth about people. They'll come after you, especially if they're in power, and hey, I'm just a little old me, right? But anyway, trying to finish this before the time goes out. You can't take pictures of fumes, what they're doing with the fumes in the air conditioners, and I'm deliberately moved from room to room and put in certain rooms where they've done it. Now then, This has been going on for years. Nobody stopped it. The least they could have done with what this country's done to me is they have made homes, God's pit crew and churches and all this made home for homeless and nice ones. And here I am begging, pleading, and I was going to say this. With the scabies, I moved to another place and to here, and it's owned by the Patel and Shaws. They have connections up to Intelligence Committee, and I've already mentioned the former governors of Virginia who are now senators, and that are friends of theirs. So I guess I'm going to stop here. I came, and they can do the same things with bedding and make you sound, if somebody doesn't care to hear it, like you're a fruitcake or a Looney Tune, and it's dismissed. Well, that's not the case. They've done it. And my life has been an ongoing hell at being harassed. It's not just harassed, it's murdering me over time with it. But anyway, when I came here, I finally got the scabies were almost under control, but they really were cruel to me here when I came. It's not a good motel anyway. It's the cheapest because I ran out of money. I'd stayed 5 months at the Shaws and Patels nearby, and it was the Knights Inn, used to be the Howard Johnson's. And of course, I was promised to be able to go back, listen to this, to Richfield and have an apartment if I stayed there. They never told why I left there. They say I broke a lease, and granted they gave me my part of my deposit back, but then they said I left good. They always come up with something which is a lie. So I waited 5 months there and soaked up the things that happened to me there. When the scabies got so bad, I came over here. I came to a motel right behind it, Super 8, which should have been halfway decent, but they're owned by the same people. And I've been told if I ever left town that most of the, like Tenneco and all those places are owned by people from India or other countries, so they'll get me. I've actually been told that. I've done nothing but beg to live. Okay, I'm going to quit here because when I came back from the hospital, I had to go to the emergency room with vertigo and throwing up and all kind. It was horrible. I spent the night there. At least they were nice to me. But they did find something up in my nose that's caused from the vapors I've had to inhale in my sinuses. And I've got to go back and see about that, which could be really bad. Anyway, I did take pictures of the air conditioning in the room I was in. I'm still here, but when I went to the hospital, because it was the fumes they had put in there, you should have seen it. It was horrible. And you can't open a window or a door here. So I'm confined to bad air conditioning. Not only that, but they come in and spray when I walk out the door. And that was done yesterday. So the point is, they could do the same thing with me, run me, and it's not that hard to do. It's just not that conventional weapon with scabies or bed bugs. It's easy to do it, believe me. And that's what they've done. And I can't really take pictures of that. I did, of the bad air conditioning. But the point I wanted to make was right after I got back from the emergency room, and it's the fumes they've deliberately put in here to give me the vertigo. And I fell. Let me just make it quick. I fell in the bathroom, and when I went down, I thought I'll never be able to get up because I hit my tailbone and all up through there. And I thought they won't let me have a home. Low-income home, that's pretty bad. They won't even let me have that. They'll let anyone have that if they can pay for it, or most of it would give them money from the state or something, and give them a home. Well, with me, they won't.